Good afternoon. Welcome to the magic of human beings. What a beautiful sunny day today. I had to have my coffee outside. It was like vitamin D. Yes, yes, please. Today, I would like to introduce our guest with this quote by Joseph Campbell. No one in the world was ever you before. With your particular gifts and abilities and possibilities. So we are going to be speaking with Alexis Deacon, the author of Beagle and many other books. And yesterday we did a trailer. We spoke a bit about Bigo, and also he read Bigo for us yesterday. The sound was a bit strange on my side, so sorry about that. And let's bring Alon in. Hello, Alexis.
Hi, Karol.
Hello, good afternoon, Alexis.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Nice day here, as you can probably see.
Oh, fantastic. I love how you display your books there.
Right, this is usually full of junk, so it's a nice chance to give it another identity for a day.
Fantastic. And look, I put some books out there too.
I know, I noticed. I was like, I appreciate that.
It was great that we spoke yesterday because I was like, oh, let's get Alexis' book, Viv's book up.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort.
And how are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm good. I've had a couple of days off, which is much needed. I've been working very hard, believe it or not, in this pandemic.
Oh, well, at least it's good to be working, huh?
Yeah, I'm very thankful for it, definitely.
Creating a way.
Yeah, I'm working for a Cartoon Network show.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I can't tell you anything about it. It's going to be great.
Top secret?
Yeah, well, a little bit.
Wow.
But I'm doing the backgrounds and location design for them, or some of that. So it's lots of fun.
Oh, great. Can't wait to see it and to know when it's on. Let us know.
I will. I will be posting a lot about it here on Instagram as soon as I'm allowed to. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing. It's been a lot of fun to work on. Yesterday I was drawing a fish restaurant for badgers.
A what?
A fish restaurant for badgers. You know, it's like small furry things with stripes.
Oh, oh, I don't know those.
Yeah, you don't get too many of them in London.
Okay.
But they're a thing.
Oh, yeah. Alexis, yesterday we spoke a little bit about Beagle, and the sound didn't come so well on my side, but thanks that yours came really beautifully. And just to tell people that weren't there yesterday how we met. So I saw this book and I fall in love with this book, Beagle. And what I love most about it, it's the feeling of it. It's so gorgeous and the drawings are so magnificent that he takes you somewhere. You're just looking at them. You want to jump in the box with Bigo and the dogs. You want to cuddle it. So because of that, then I wrote to Alexis. And then you got the letter I wrote to the publisher and you reply. And then we became friends.
Yeah, well, the nice thing was I didn't realize you lived on basically the next street, so that made it easy.
Yes. So that was incredible that you lived so nearby. And it was great. Yeah.
You used to have this amazing house. Do you remember that wonderful kitchen, huge space, and this great stairwell, and there were books everywhere? I remember.
Yes, but first time I came to visit you, there were birds flying everywhere.
Oh yeah, I miss those birds. They're all dead now.
All the And I was like, oh my goodness, what is that? Is birds flying? We're having tea and there were birds flying.
Yeah, we had about 12 of them at one time, I think, maybe even more. No, I think 10 maybe was the high water mark. But it was, they were great company. But yeah, they all died of old age. So nice.
And I love you had all different action figures as well.
Yes, I still have those. They're all just tactfully out of shot. If I move, like, I've got Jabba just behind me here. Yeah, if you could see what the camera can't show, there's still a lot of them around.
Oh, wow. And that was a funny coincidence as well, because then I told you that I play Rabbie.
Yes, you're still the only person I met who is also available as an action figure.
So that was so funny.
Yeah, that was definitely an added plus.
Yeah, we were like, what? I was like, oh, you have all these action figures. Wow, I have one too.
That's still an unfulfilled life ambition for me. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I might just have to make one myself.
Yes. And I saw in our talk, there is someone here who wrote The Queen's Shadows and Queen's Perils.
The suspense.
Suspense. So it's very exciting that she's here in our talk as well.
Oh, yeah. I see. Just joining. Yeah,
yes.
You got your I didn't see. That's nice. Hello.
About Rabbie, and she said it was really good fun to write about Rabbie, which I haven't read yet. Queen Sparrows is my next one. So I'm very excited also to know more about my character.
Oh, is that one of the novelizations of Star Wars?
Yes.
Oh, that is exciting.
So very exciting. So, Alexis, let's talk about... Shall we start with your background? Tell us something about your background, how...
Yeah, how far back would you like to go? Do you want to know how I got into children's books?
Yes, please.
Or would you like to start younger than that?
It's up to you, whatever you would like to share.
I had a relatively, well, it wasn't an easy road into children's books, but it was my first job out of college. I went to study illustration at Brighton University down by the sea. And we're down in Hastings now, so come back by the sea. And in the third year of that course, I wrote a book called Sluggarus, which I sent off to a publisher, and that ended up being published. You can see it somewhere behind me. You might read it in a second. But that wasn't, I'd sent them like story after story after story. I had one of these things where a publisher wrote back to me after I sent them something. It was this story called The Monster Zoo. And they took the time to write me a letter back and say that they really liked the pictures and a couple of the ideas, but they thought it was way too horrifying for children and there was no way it could ever be published. There was one scene where a guy has a bucket of severed hands and he's throwing them out to these sort of giant shark creatures. It all seemed to make perfect sense to me at the time, but I hadn't quite registered that there's a different bar for entry in terms of content for the under fives, and severed hands were above that bar.
Oh.
So yeah, they took the time to invite me into the publisher, and I showed them some other examples of my work, and they seemed very excited and encouraged. So I just kept bothering them with new stories. I sent them story after story after story. I think I read about 6 or 7, and Sluggarus was the last one that I sent them, and they said yes to that. It was sort of like a crash course in picture book storytelling, because each time they would send it back with different feedback. You know, it's too much this, it's too much that. And I would try and listen to them and make a change the next time. But I guess that's how I got gradually steered towards cute animals, you know. Without them telling me, write about cute animals. They were like, make it more this, make it more that. And somehow it ended up as cute animals.
So you just kept sending them stories?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it, isn't it? Until they tell you stop bothering us.
But that is
Just
great, because you believe in what you're doing and you kept doing and sending them. And
well, I guess I was still at college, so I was still in an environment where producing work, you know, I had a place to go where I could work, and the point of being there was to draw pictures. So it wasn't being like that amazingly persistent. It was, my teachers would have had to go at me if I stopped drawing. So it was nice to have some focus to all of that drawing. And I was lucky to get published so quickly.
And did you draw since you're a kid?
Did I what?
Since what age did you start drawing?
Since very small. I think, and I often say, you know, in schools they always ask you, like, when did you start drawing?
Yeah.
But actually, most of us started drawing super small, just at some point decided to stop. But I would do it a lot. My parents were both artists, and there was always stuff to draw around, you know, paper everywhere and pencils and drawing materials to draw with. They're also both quite self-contained people, so I think they were happy if I was happily doing my own thing. So there was definitely, when they saw me drawing, you know, they'd try to feed the habit, because A, I'm quiet, and B, I look happy enough and I'm out of the way. You know, the worst thing that could happen is they're going to trip over me. So yeah, I love to draw, and I kept doing it from very, very early childhood, and then just kept on doing it. I think the crucial bit is when you sort of get into that older, like pre-teen and teenage childhood, when you internalize other people's judgment. It's very difficult to keep doing those kinds of things that you did as a kid, unself-consciously. Yeah. But I think that the children who keep drawing are the ones who don't have very many friends, for one thing. I definitely fell into that group. And the ones who the ones who get told they're good at it. Because I think when you become a teenager and you sort of internalize other people's judgment, if you can hang on to the fact that people have told you you're good at drawing, then that's like, it's like a life raft. You're like, oh, at least I'm good at drawing. So there was never any doubt that I'd keep doing it for those two reasons. And I think probably anybody listening in who also loves drawing maybe has had a similar experience.
Yes, and kids, it's exactly how you said, they're born and they're there drawing, but there is a time that is very interesting. For example, going to schools and work with them, and we ask them to do simple things as we are making a puppet. Oh, draw a circle. Oh, draw some. And there are times where they say, oh, but I can't draw. And they want to erase everything that they do. They don't think is good enough. So it's very interesting. And then we say, well, at least in my artistry, we say, it doesn't really matter if it's that round, if it's that thing. We are going to transform, we are going to build on top of it, we are going to make a puppet. So there's lots of kids who say, oh, I can't draw. And
yeah, that's when you drop out. And actually, if you look at those children, very often they draw every bit as well as all the other children. They just somehow internalize the fact that they're bad at it.
Yes. And Alexis, you're talking about your first book, Sluggarus. And a friend of mine saw the Sluggarus and that I posted today, and she sent me a message saying, I can't believe I just read to my kids via Zoom this morning. So I told them about you guys would be talking, so for them if they can tune in, or if later if you can keep it so we can see somewhere else. And she said the class, oh, it's our class at Recreation Road Infant School. So if for the kids that are watching now and read this morning Sluggarus, what piece of advice you'd like to tell them about drawing or creativity? Or
well, the first thing I'd like to tell them, I hadn't realized when I wrote Sluggarus that actually the Sluggarus is a very misunderstood creature, and there's like this horrible illegal pet trade in them. So one, try not to think that Sluggarus are cute and harmless and cuddly and you can have one at home. I'm sure that's not going to apply to anyone, but I should say it out loud. But drawing wise, I mean, if you love something, don't let anybody take that away from you. You're the only one who can say you're allowed to do it or you're not. Try and listen to those voices that say you're you're good at it. If you believe it's something you enjoy, then yeah, don't let other people take that away from you. Should we take a break and read Sluggarus?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Fancy reading a story. Yeah, so let's read this one together. It's the shiny version, so you can. I might have to turn my lamp off. Otherwise, we'll get like a circle in every page. Yeah, Sluggarus. So I wrote this one a long time ago. So year 2000, I wrote this. So it's over 21 years old.
Woo!
I missed his 20th birthday. I'm sure he didn't care. Doesn't care about much. All right, let's go. So, Sluggarus lived in a zoo, though he didn't care for it much. Sluggarus wasn't his real name, but that was what everyone called him. A Sluggarus is just a type of animal. Sluggarus was a Sluggarus. He really was very slow. It took Loris 10 minutes to eat a satsuma. 20 minutes to get from one end of his branch to the other. And an hour to scratch his bottom. I know how it feels. Most of the time, though, he just hung around sleeping. The other animals all thought that Loris was boring. The visitors thought so too. But Loris didn't care. He had a secret. At night, when all of the other animals were sound asleep, Loris got up and did things fast. Only published use of a Photoshop zoom filter there. Until he was so tired he couldn't do another thing. Well, as you can imagine, this didn't stay a secret for very long. One night, when Loris was busy doing particularly noisy things, he was discovered. Bong, 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 bong. News of Loris' secret life spread quickly, and the next evening, the whole zoo had gathered outside the Sluggarus cage. Sure enough, when it was really dark, out came Loris. The other animals were amazed. Loris wasn't boring at all. He was really wild. You can tell by the hat. That night, they all did things together. Until they were all so tired, not one of them could do another thing. The next day, all of the animals were slow. Oh, all right, said the visitors. But like Loris, they didn't care. Now they had a secret too. And that's the end.
Oh.
Always fun to read these stories.
So beautiful.
Thank you. I really like that one. I have a soft spot for it. I think partially because of the amount of black they let me use. That feels like a small victory. Books.
And how did you come with the idea?
For Sluggarus. Oh, well, I used to go drawing in London Zoo. You know, at my college, they taught a lot of life drawing. Mm-hmm. And finding good subjects was always challenging. Sorry, let me turn the lamp back on so you can see me. So yeah, I used to go and draw at London Zoo, a wonderful collection of animals there. And in the nocturnal house, they have these animals called Sluggarus. And they're really fascinating creatures. Like, they're not slow, they just move very even and regular and deliberate, you know. You feel like they know where they're going, they're not going to change their minds. I couldn't draw down in the nocturnal house because it was so dark, so I just used to sit and watch the animals. And I watched the Sluggaruses a lot. And there were two of them in the enclosure, and they kind of go back and forth, just around about their business. And then one time, two of them got on the same branch, and they were just like walking towards each other, you know, like two heavy goods trucks. And then, like right in front of each other, a millimeter apart, they stopped before they bumped heads. And if you've ever seen them, they have like huge eyes. So they had this really intense moment where they were just staring at each other. And then one of them took his paw off the branch and made a swipe to gouge the other one's eyeballs out. And just as he was about to do it, the other one ducked out of the way, slowly but deliberately, and then went, ah, and they both turned around and went away. And it was such a nice moment to see. I thought, I've got to do something with you guys. You've got a cool name, you look cool, and you do cool stuff. So I think that's how the idea got stuck in my head. These animals were cool. And I had to make a book out of them.
Great. And
if you notice, like that, the start of that story is just me writing down every single thing I know about Sluggaruses, which is hardly anything. It's amazing. I think that keeps me going for about half the book. But yeah, then we find out they do things fast at night.
Yeah. And I love his collars, the hat, and
I know.
And that he doesn't care about if they think he's boring or not. He's just like, whatever.
Yeah, the theory that every children's book or every book anyone writes is somehow like autobiographical in some way. I don't think it's a coincidence that that one was written while I was at college, and everybody sort of sleeps all day and parties all night. I'm sure that's no accident. But yeah, also, I think that's kind of the mindset you have to have when you're growing up as someone who loves drawing, who loves things that other people don't seem to like so much. You have to be very stubborn and think, well, I don't care, I like it. Screw you guys. Yeah, you definitely have the Sluggarus mentality. It's been useful at some times and really not useful at others, but there you go, I'm stuck.
And then what happened after Sluggarus?
Well, I left college, that was a big thing. And knowing that I had this published book on the horizon, that kept me going for about a year of painful backwards and forwards with the publisher, trying to work out how to turn a very rough dummy book into something that somebody would publish. And when I came at the other end of that, I'd signed this deal. They often do this when you're starting out as an illustrator and you get your first book deal. They'll sign you up for 2 books because it's cheaper for them that way. If it's a big success, then they've signed you up for hardly anything. Well, Sluggarus wasn't a massive success, but they got a pretty good deal out of it. So I had another book to make, and I just sort of went to work each day. I got a studio, and I showed up at the desk each day at like 9 a.m. and sat down and tried to think of ideas. And as you can imagine, like it didn't go that well. That's not really how it works, but it was a steep learning curve for me with illustration. I should have treated it like an office job. And yeah, I would very dutifully come in and sit down and think, okay, think up something cute and interesting now. But all I could draw were wrestlers because I like wrestling.
Ah.
I just knew, I tried to write a book about wrestlers, but that wasn't really happening. And so instead I wrote a book about a bear who becomes a wrestler. And all of these ideas were getting sent back, of course, because they were stupid. But we did get there in the end. It was this sort of long, painful process towards finding something that a child could actually identify with and enjoy. So what began as a wrestler ended as a small alien by many, many steps and degrees. And looking for a job in the big city became getting lost in the big city, became crash landing in the big city. And looking for a job became finding your mum and dad. So it was like all reducing at the core emotions down to something that a child could relate to. And that's how Beagle came. She began as a professional wrestler. You wouldn't know it to look at her.
No. So Beagle came from a bear?
Yeah, she was a wrestler. She was a bear. She was a big adult alien for ages. And then, I mean, early on there were scenes like, there were much more Like one time she gets kicked out of a nightclub. That was one thing that happened in an early draft of Beagle. She tries to cross a busy road. Like there were outtakes from that story. And it was always a case of like, oh, make it simpler, make it more appealing. I think the penny finally dropped, and I tried to make it as simple and as appealing as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm. This one talking about big city.
Exactly. That's it.
Oh.
So here as well, I've got the gutter scene. Yeah, this is what it's like. I lived in London most of my life. This is documentary here.
Yeah.
Poor Beagle. I know how she feels.
And Alexis, how many times do you have to draw to get each drawing to have such a feeling that you look at it and you're like, you don't need any words, you're just like.
Yeah, it's definitely not as easy as it maybe might look. Most drawings have about 10 or 20 different versions that go into finding that exact one. And often it will be, I mean, I had this approach when I was starting out drawing where I just wanted the feeling to be right. And it didn't matter sort of what it had been drawn in, at what size, on what surface, that's what I would use. And so I think most of the drawings for Beagle were tiny little pencil drawings that got blown up quite big, just because they had the right emotional feeling, and then I'd sort of photocopy them onto larger paper and colour them in with gouache and watercolour paints.
Oh.
So yeah, I think that's a nice way of working, that you're not really thinking about getting it first time, but just trying to get the right feeling each time.
Uh-huh.
It helps Beagle feel more like a living creature. Like, yes, like a drawing, you know, you're just looking at this whole range of images and you're like, yeah, that looks like her, that looks like her.
No, and Beagle touch lives of children, adults, and it's being around everywhere.
Yeah, Beagle is my book that's really been a success. And I think it's a lot of that is to do with the simplicity of it.
Yeah, the simplicity, wow, it's incredible, Alexis. And have you been like in other countries? Have you heard of?
Yes, I mean, that's how the publishing industry works here, is they make up some of their money by selling the rights to print your stories overseas. So most books have been printed in many different languages. Beagle certainly, not as many as you would think. It's a big success here in the UK, but not so much in other countries. I think Beagle is in about 5 or 6 languages, not particularly many.
Japan?
What's that?
Japan?
I think it did. I think it's the only one that went to Japan, yeah. Actually, maybe Henry Finch went to Japan as well. But yes, Beagle is in Japanese.
I can see the Japanese going wild for Beagle.
I was very excited when it got a Japanese translation. I really love, big manga fan, anime fan. So yes, I love the idea that Beagle is being read in Japan.
And yeah, and it's across all schools in the UK.
Yeah, year 1 year children, they read it and they do activities with it. It's very cute, and I still get messages to this day. I've done a few shout outs to schools who've been working with Beagle during the pandemic. I've joined a few classes, to draw Beagle, and it's lovely that people are still reading that story. They don't know Beagle's like she's approaching her midlife crisis now. She's almost my age. She's getting on for 20. Actually, half my know what I'm talking about. But she's in college now.
Oh wow! And so, do you get letters? Do you get kids? Do they write to you? Do they send messages?
Yeah, of course. Not so many as you would think, especially as Beagle's in school so much. And I kind of like that because I think, children like Beagle. That's why they're excited. They're excited to meet Beagle. They don't care about me. That's quite right. Like, why should they care about me? I'm just some old bald guy. But Beagle, they'd love to meet her. So I think if Beagle had a mailing address, maybe she would get more letters. But I do get people writing like every month. Someone will say that they've really enjoyed it, which is lovely, because that's exactly what you hope for, isn't it? When you write a book, that people will sort of take it on and care for it. I think the nicest things I get are the homemade Beagle toys.
Beagle toys.
When people have knitted it, or Beagle costumes, because we have this thing here, World Book Day, where everybody comes dressed as a character from a book. It's once a year, and so there's quite a few Beagle costumes that I see.
And
mostly long balls and yellow tights do the job.
And remember when Chloe and I invited you to the youth club that we were working over the summer, and we did Bigo with the children. That
was wonderful. Yeah, you've done a fantastic job. So for those that don't know, Bigo was done as a youth production, and there were these wonderful sort of papier-mâché giant costumes of the parents, and it was really beautiful. It was sort of done as part circus. So there's lots of play.
Yeah, Carver was there doing this with the kids, and we were doing the arts and puppetry.
Lots of jumping around with rabbits as well.
Yeah, and they loved so much that you could come. They couldn't believe. They were so excited.
I know. Being a children's book illustrator is super weird in that most of the time you're a complete nobody, but every now and again you'll go somewhere and you'll be kind of a mini celebrity. It's a laugh. My favourite is you go through, so I do this thing called the Children's Book Show. It's a wonderful charitable enterprise where authors will do a live performance in a local regional theatre, and then we go and visit the schools that have attended the performance. And when you go into those schools, then you really get, oh, that's Alexis Deacon. And they always say your full name in one breath as well, Alexis Deacon. And you go into the canteen and there'll just be like this ripple, Alexis Deacon, Alexis Deacon.
It must be so strange, coming, saying your name, knowing who you are, and then next week you're walking home and it's so good.
Yeah, well, I definitely prefer it that way. I think if you were somebody who people really did know who you were, like Kim Kardashian or something, I think that would get old very quickly, don't you? Imagine if children everywhere all the time were going, oh, Alexis Deacon. It'd be horrible, it'd be a nightmare. So
imagine
what's that?
Imagine if you were in the supermarket and the little kids with their mind, Alex.
Yeah, I guess Kim Kardashian doesn't go to the supermarket. Maybe that's the answer. But I'd miss it. I'd miss Morrison's.
Oh, it's so amazing to be able to create something and put that in the world and just as a present to the world and to everyone.
And that's one of the nice things about writing books, I think, is that once you've written it and it's been published and printed and it goes out into the world, it's kind of like you can relax. It's just it's not your worry anymore. You made it. It's like a grown-up child. It's left the home. It's going off. It's going to have its own life now. Make new friends. So yeah, when one comes back to you, I really like it when you hear stories where people have really taken a book and kind of made it part of their lives. That's the nicest thing that can come back to you, I think, as an author. That somebody says to you, that they tell you a story of how their children have related to your book, or if they've been a child when reading your book, how much it meant to them. That's the best feeling.
Oh, that's great. And how, being an illustrator, how is that? Is that hard, writing and with surviving? I'm saying that with...
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It's funny, you probably saw a few memes when the pandemic started, if you're friends with illustrators on Instagram, of us all thinking oh, what changed? We're still in our rooms most of the time, at our desk or computer most of the time. If you think a few of us emerged into daylight to see everyone wearing masks and looking suspicious at each other and thought, oh, did I miss something? So being an illustrator is hard in that way, I think. It can be quite a lonely life, quite isolating, but I think that's also part of the joy of it. It's very self-contained and independent. It's very free. I really like the freedom of it. And there's lots of joy and upside to it too. The main one being that you get to do the thing that you really love. You don't have to, you're not selling your time. Your time is your own almost always. And I've got to work on some wonderful projects over the years, which I've been really, really excited to be part of. So it's been a blessing, definitely. I wouldn't change it.
Great. And you collaborate with quite a few different people.
Yeah. Shall we read another story and then
Yeah,
collaboration with Viv? I'm not keeping an eye on the time, by the way, so
I'll keep it.
let me know when
I'll
I'm
keep
on.
an eye on time.
Okay, thank you. Right. Let's have this one, because this is one of the more recent ones that actually found an audience and has been successful. It's called I Am Henry Finch. I don't know the words so well on this one, so I might have to look at the pages every now and again. Okay, hope you're all sitting comfortably. The Finches all lived in a great flock. They made such a racket all day long, you really could not hear yourself think. Every morning, they said, good morning. Good morning, Aziz Finch. Good morning, George Finch. Good morning, Tippy Finch. Good morning, Henry Finch. Every afternoon, they said, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Babette Finch. Good afternoon, Jean-Luc Finch. Good afternoon, Henry Finch. Good afternoon, Felicity Finch. In the evening, they said, good evening. Good evening, Henry Finch. Good evening, Florence Finch. Good evening, Pepper Finch. Good evening, Ellen Finch. And at night, they said, good night. Good night, Betty Finch. Good night, Henry Finch. Good night, Bob Finch. Good night. Didn't think I was going to make it. In the morning, they started over. It was always the same, except sometimes the beast came. Oh! And then they would all shout, ah, ah, the beast, and fly as fast as they could to the top of the nearest tree, where they would sit and shout until the beast had moved on. This was the way it always was, until one night something else happened. A finch woke up in the dark and the quiet. He had a thought, and he heard it. I am Henry Finch, he thought. I think, he thought. Shocking. He sat still and listened to his thoughts. He had more of them. He liked them. Am I the first Finch to ever have the thought, he thought. I could be great, thought Henry. The next morning, the beast came. Ah, 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 the beast. It was the time for greatness. I am Henry Finch, screamed Henry Finch, and dived down straight at the beast. Who ate him? Short story. It was very dark inside the beast and very quiet. I will listen to my thoughts, Henry Finch said, but they were bad thoughts. You are a fool, Henry Finch, he thought. You are not great. You are only someone's dinner. Now, Henry did not like his thoughts at all. He tried not to think, but what else could he do? He thought and thought and thought. Who am I? He thought. Am I Henry Finch? I am something, I think. I am, he thought. It is, he thought. And in case this is too small to see, he's having some sort of blinding revelation of every single thing in the universe and how it's connected. Then all of his thoughts fell silent. He became aware of the sounds around him. They were the sounds of the beast. Henry was quiet. He listened. He could hear the thoughts of the beast. Got to eat, got to hunt, got to find more food. Big family, all need feeding, crawling, swimming, flying, walking, anything will do. No, said Henry. No, thought the beast. Those creatures have families like you, said Henry. Like me? Thought the beast. You will eat plants from now on, said Henry. They have parts to spare. I will eat plants, thought the beast. And now, said Henry, you will open your mouth as wide as you can and hold it like that for a bit. Open, thought the beast. and out flew Henry. Hey, someone called from the top of a nearby tree. Everyone, I think that's Henry. Good morning, everyone, said Henry. Good morning, Henry Finch, said everyone. I have something to tell you, said Henry, but first you have to be quiet. Everyone was quiet. Henry told the Finches about everything that had happened to him. When he had finished, no one moved. They stayed quiet. Minds blown. And then a little voice said, I've had a thought. Goodbye, everyone. I will come back. One by one, all of the Finches had thoughts and flew off. We will come back, they called behind them. Henry looked up at them. He smiled a Finch smile. Great, thought Henry.
Oh.
Thank you. I love reading that one. It's a lot of fun.
Oh.
Yeah, poor Henry. It all turned out well for him.
Very inspiring, Henry, yeah?
Right. Empowering.
Empowering.
Even for a small finch, you have been eaten. Not all hope is lost.
Yeah, that's small. And then I guess the big beast. Oh, look, lots of hearts coming out.
Thank you, everyone. That's one of my favorites. I really like that story. It's a lot of fun to read. I think sometimes some of my stories, like I now dread reading out loud to schools because I can't make them work. And that's one that I enjoy. I really get a kick out of reading it.
Oh, that is so good. But it's so...
I just saw someone say 6-year-old loved it.
What did they
Good,
say?
intended audience.
Hello, 6-year-old loved your reading. Oh!
Well, we'll do one more maybe before I go. Do one more. But,
my mom just said, lindo demais. Beautiful.
In Portuguese?
In Portuguese, yes. She just said I loved it. So in Portuguese, she's like the expression there. Oh.
Yeah, so you were going to talk a little bit about collaboration. Is that?
Yes.
I think that's why I read it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was made together with Viv, and I've done a few books with her. I know that you're friends with her also.
Yeah.
We have a couple of our ones that we've done together in the background.
Yes.
Collaborating with people.
Introduced her to me, so thanks to
yes,
you.
That's right. You have me to thank for having Viv as a friend, so you're welcome. Giving back to the community. Yeah, collaborating is a lot of fun. I think sometimes, as I was saying before in some of my earlier comments, like being an illustrator, you're often quite stuck in your own place, wherever that is, mentally and physically. And so being able to work with another person is quite a nice release from that. You sort of get that, you get in these loops of thought when you're working on your own. Having another person's vision to go along with yours is very helpful, especially somebody as capable as Viv is. She's a really good editor. I wish she'd been editing some other stuff. I send her these texts like with loads of unnecessary bits, and it's just like out it all goes, and what's left is actually a decent story. So that's a nice skill to have. I also think that sometimes her drawings are, people always say my drawings are too scary. Have we got While You're Sleeping here? No, I didn't have While You're Sleeping here. And do you have it? This one with the sort of dead-eyed stuffed animals? Anyway.
Yes, I've got that one.
Oh, there we go, yeah. And people are like, that's scary. It's like, how is it scary to have 3 giant stuffed animals looming over a sleeping child? I don't see it.
Do you know, it's interesting that people say that it's scary, because now I'm going to say myself and the feeling of it, yeah?
Yeah.
It's, you know, there is a feeling that something's happening to the child, that the child is in state of tiredness, of the child can't do anything, and looks like the toys are looking after it. The toys are helping it to bring to life. That's what it. So if they say that, maybe that's why they think scary, is because the child is like, feels like, oh, I have a bit of, like, can you see, like, And the
Yeah, I
drawing.
know the picture very well. I remember drawing them. It's not a coincidence. I was in quite a bad state when I wrote that book. I was caring for somebody with terrible depression. And so I'm sure that all just came out in that story. No wonder it's not light and fluffy. But yeah, that's what I was saying, working with Viv, I'm able to access sort of, I feel like some of my stories would be a little bit creepy or scary if it weren't for the help of her illustrations, sort of lightening and simplifying them. We have another one coming out. I think it was supposed to come out this year, but it got pandemicked. It's about a little chick who's about to hatch, called Ergo. So we'll probably continue to make more stories as long as people keep buying them. I think Henry Finch did quite well, as I said. So, and I know that some of the others, While You're Sleeping, which is here somewhere.
You guys won a prize for that, right?
We won a prize for I Am Henry Finch. We got the Most Radical Children's Book of the Year prize, which quite pleased about that.
But you know, Alexis, what you said about this, what you're going through also, and I think that's why make those books so magical and so beautiful, because of the feeling, because it's the honesty that brings out on it. So it's you connect, so it's connect, so people connect with that.
Yeah,
with
that's interesting. You would say
it's real.
I feel the same. To me, it's so important that you be honest and genuine with your work. You can still be funny and entertaining, but like don't pretend someone that you're not. I think sometimes maybe I suffer for that a little bit, but yeah, for me, the things that I always cared about that I had when I was a child were the ones where I felt like people were giving me the real stuff. You know, they weren't treating me like a baby or trying to make things safe and pretty and harmless when they're not pretty or harmless. I think life can be pretty hilarious sometimes, but it can also be scary, and you know, you want to have access to the full range. Otherwise, I think things don't feel right. It's almost, to me, more scary when you fake stuff that isn't there. You know, pretend that things don't exist. To me, that's much more terrifying. But maybe that's just me.
No, so that's why it's great, and it makes us connect. And talking about, okay, so you said there is a book coming out, but you have another book coming out soon, right?
The third part of the comic book story I've been working on, Gesh 3, yeah. So that got pandemicked a couple of times as well. That was supposed to come out this year. I mean, last year rather, and then this year, and now it's going to be 2022. But I'm really looking forward to getting that one published because I love the third part of that story. I worked super hard on it, and it's got some of my favourite moments. There's a character who becomes a cat halfway through. Oh, spoiler, sorry.
Oh no,
that's okay. I didn't say which character, did I? So, but it's so much fun to draw, and there's this tiny man who's friends with her, and it's just, and he's not got any clothes on half the time. They're just hilarious to draw. I love every time a scene with them comes up. And then also finally, the story is concluded, so there's like a payoff, and you get to leave behind a story that I've been with for a number of years. So I can't wait for that one to come out, but sadly I will have to.
Graphic novel?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's going to get a rebrand as well.
Can you just tell, because we're talking about the third that's coming out, but can you just tell us about 1 and 2 and how?
Yeah, sure. I have the French versions up here behind me. So that's the first one on the left with the lady in the blue dress, and the one on the right is the second one with the guy in white on red. The setting is it's in a sort of medieval world, and a chieftain has died, and she's not left any successor. So there's this grand tournament that's organised to find who's going to take over from this chieftain, and all the sort of powerful people of the land are invited to come and attend this tournament. But pretty soon you find out that everything is not quite as it appears, and the sorceress who's in charge of running the tournament, has taken it over, and she's going to use it for her own ends, to try and seize power for herself and kill everybody along at the same time. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone. So it's a little bit like sort of Hunger Games or Battle Royale, if you've seen either of those. Sort of like a children's book version of those, where there's kind of only supposed to be 1 winner, so everybody's going to meet some sort of grisly fate on the way. But we've killed off a lot of people by now. It's the end of the second book, and quite a few of them are dead. If I ever write a book again, I will not start with 50 characters and kill them off gradually. I think that was a strange strategy. It's nice to introduce them bit by bit, you know, rather than start with like a
this is sounding more like Game of Thrones, that everyone dies.
Yeah, well, I was quite inspired by that aspect of Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones, before it turned terrible, made a strong impression on everybody. Especially, it does some kind of radical things with storytelling where it's the first story I've ever encountered where you'd sort of have characters who'd get killed in the middle of their story arc. You know, it's like, oh wait, though he didn't, you know, I thought he was going somewhere else. So it's nice. It's a nice, playful way of writing for people who enjoy, who are very familiar with storytelling convention. It kind of brings you up short. It's like, hang on, but that was, you know, he was important. Unfortunately, towards the end of the story, Game of Thrones, this is, I feel like you sort of knew who was safe. You know, it's like, oh, you come this far, you know, you're not going to get killed now. And they more or less did stick to that. But yeah, those beginning chapters were very, very exciting. And I loved the feeling of having real stakes, you know, that people genuinely might die at any moment. I thought that kept me quite riveted to that story. So I wanted some of the same with this. I wanted that idea that nobody is really safe and the threat is real. But hey, you'll have to read it to see what happens at the end.
Yes, and someone just wrote, "It's the best comic ever. Can't wait."
Oh, did they? Their name is just disappearing off the top there.
Zara.
I love writing Gesh. It's been like a life's ambition to write a long-form comic book story. So it's hugely exciting to get it done, and I can't wait for the last one to be published and just tie the whole story up, move on to the next.
Oh, and I love that I was there in Soho for the signing.
That's right, when we still say hello to each other and breathe on each other. Yeah, Gosh Comics, where I had the launch. In fact, I see Becky just joined. Hi, Becky. I think she was there as well. Yeah, do you remember how crammed that was? It's this tiny space. You're like, if someone has something there, you're all getting it.
Yes.
Becky we used to teach dance together. So I guess that's another thing that we're not doing anymore. Hey. Yeah, we used to teach blues dance in this little pub in Islington. It's very sad, all the things that have gone away. I can't wait for them to come back again.
Yes. And how about Croc and Bird?
Croc and Bird, yes. Should we finish on that? Should we talk a little bit about Croc and Bird and then maybe wrap up?
Exactly.
Yeah, so when I first met you, I was just about to have like this massive breakdown and illness, which stopped me from working for years. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. I can't remember how intense we were during that period. But I'd signed the contract to do another picture book, a bit like with Beagle. So instead of having months and months at my desk trying to come up with an idea, I had literally 4 years to come up with an idea. And I wrote this story thinking I wanted something very simple and funny with just an easy to understand concept. And all I could draw at that time was really basic stuff like eggs. You know, I could draw an egg. So I thought, what could come out of eggs? And that was how the idea for Croc and Bird came out. And I made this original version of it with really, really simple drawings, but it gradually got more complex as I started to make the finished book. That's one that I'm very fond of, actually, Croc and Bird. I feel like it has really nice heart to it, and I especially like the last page.
Oh, and would you like to read us Croc and Bird?
I'll read you Croc and Bird. I think we better read it soon, because I think both you and I are about to get entirely irradiated.
Yes, so what I'm going to do then...
I'm very grateful to see it, the sun, but I think it's just about, like in Indiana Jones, it's just about to crest a window frame here, and there's not going to be, I will only have half a face. So yes, let me read Croc and Bird.
So what I'm going to do, Alexis, I'm going to do something really fast. I'm just going to ask you, if you had a superpower, what would that be?
You know, I've been thinking about this. There's so many of them that are so great. when I was a kid, I would have loved to be super strong, because when you're small, you don't want to be small. You want to be really big. But nowadays, I don't think that would be so fun. You know, imagine like you can't fit in an aeroplane toilet and all this stuff. It would get old quick. And I thought, well, I could have like one of the creepy ones, like being invisible, where you just get to walk around and spy on everybody in secret. But I'm not sure that would be that fun either. Especially if anyone has watched The Boys, you'll understand why that might not be so fun. I really like the Fantastic Four, and I think I'm going to go for being invulnerable. I think sometimes I'm a little bit excessively cautious in life, and there's one of the Fantastic Four is like covered in rock. I always wanted to be that guy. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stay true to my child self. I'm going to be the thing.
Being the Rock Man.
Ben Grimm, yes. Plus, he's orange, I'm orange, you know, like a thing.
And if you could go in time, where would that be?
I love the ancient world, and that's, I think, my favorite period. So possibly ancient Greece or Rome, one of those two. I've just been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I love being in that time period. You know, even if your only option for interacting with people is whopping them with an axe, I still enjoy being in ancient Greece. So I'm going to go ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece. So Alexis, I'm just going to read this quote because I think it's perfect for what we've been talking and your work and everything. Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors where there were only walls.
Is that a Joseph Campbell quote?
Yes, it's Joseph Campbell.
I love Joseph Campbell.
I'll just have to say thank you. I'll call you back straight away to get the story, Croc and Bud. But I have to say thank you and goodbye now because
of a time limit.
Yes, but then I go in
and then we'll read the story and I'll say all right.
Exactly. But I'm just gonna say thank you. It's a pleasure and so inspiring. See you in a minute.
Welcome.